I remember Salman Rushdie. Oh, no, this is a boring line. Don't worry about it. Forget it.
Abort. Before we do serious ones, can I give you my frivolous, not really an idea?
Oh, you want to go first, do you? Okay, all right.
This isn't an actual idea. This is like a 5-second joke idea.
Okay.
It's called the Ponytail Podcast. And it's only people who are ever on it have to be people with ponytails.
That's pretty cool. What brought that idea on?
Oh, I don't know. I just think I saw some men with ponytails. Obviously, ponytails are a lot more common on women in our society. But I saw a few men with ponytails, and I always thought it's an interesting kind of guy that rocks the ponytail these days.
Yeah.
So I thought, I wanted to find out more about these people. So I thought, let's get them on a podcast. But then I did a bit of Googling like just a second ago before we started, like for famous men with ponytails, thinking I wouldn't find many. And there were loads of them. Like almost every famous person at some stage has sported the ponytail.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt, David Beckham, Harry Styles, all those, Matt Damon I see here with a ponytail. So
hang on a sec. Matt Damon?
Yeah.
He's had one haircut for the entire career. Surely not.
No, I found one here where he's got this long hair with a ponytail. It's amazing.
Oh, dear.
Have you ever had a ponytail?
No, I've had two forms of slightly longish hair. One was in the early 90s like a mullet.
Oh, you had a cracking mullet.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
You had the mullet and spiky hair at the top combo.
Well, I wasn't going to introduce the spiky hair component, but yeah, that's right.
I was going to keep that quiet.
It was, as they call, business at the front, party at the back.
See, I went the other way with my mullet. I had the mullet and like all combed forward, like as flat as possible because I hated spiky hair. So in hindsight, it looks even worse. I had like the long mullet at the back and the terrible combed forward nerd haircut at the front.
Well, that nerd haircut became pretty cool around, in more recent times. We were just hipsters way ahead of our time. The other longish hair was as the 90s moved forwards and you sort of moved towards the grunge era. I sort of grew it long all around, so it was a little bit Kurt Cobain with a part down the middle. That also wasn't a good look for me. I can picture in my mind a photo of me sitting next to Dad, leaning against, of all things, a trampoline in our backyard with me with like Kurt Cobain hair. And that's a particularly...
Seriously, your dad had cooler hair than you.
Yeah, he did. He had lovely wavy sort of back hair. But
yeah,
it is funny that, as you're growing up and your hair changes in different styles of cool, you're always generally photographed, not in a music video or out on the town, but in your domestic home, which never looks more... You never look more out of place than just, you know what I mean, in the backyard against the trampoline or something with your totally cool hair.
You're right, though. Another thing that's interesting as well is... Unless someone loses their hair or has like some hair catastrophe, right?
Yeah.
You never look back at your old haircuts and think, that was a good one. I wish I could have that one again.
That's right.
You always think your current haircut's the best one you've ever had.
It is funny how you live life year by year, in a sense when you're young trying to keep up. But then you look back and you think, geez, if only I'd chosen something a bit timeless and just gone with it. There's... Like, my dad looks exactly the same in every era of his life, except he goes grey. But you know what I mean? It's just got this...
Except mutton chops. The only thing that changes with your dad in those old photos is he sometimes has mutton chops.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Mutton chops. I'll come back to them a bit later with my idea, but yeah, mutton chops.
All right.
But they... something to look forward to.
Yeah. Teaser. Spoiler.
Yeah.
There's mutton chops coming, people.
If you could have anyone's hair, who would you have?
Oh, good question. Who's got cool hair? I always think, like obviously because I've got light hair, I'm always a bit envious of people who have really dark hair. Because also, obviously, having dark hair is considered the more attractive, among men.
Oh.
Tall, dark and handsome. So.
Oh, right. I never thought about that.
So, I've always looked at your dark hair with envious eyes, man.
Really?
No.
Oh, I think there's a little bit of truth in it. Every joke has a little bit of truth in it.
Oh, many times I've gone into a hairdresser and just showed them a picture of you on my phone and said, can you do this?
Just make me look like this guy.
That's pictures of you when you had the long spiky hair.
Yeah, that's right. You treasure them in your wallet. Oh, so ponytails, though. You've never had a ponytail then, I imagine?
No, I haven't. not at all. I've had I've sometimes when my hair's been longer, I've done the thing where you sort of pull it up and put it in like a little band in it, so it's kind of like a little stubby little tail, like a little cropped tail. But I wouldn't call that a ponytail.
You didn't go out looking like that though, did you?
No, it's just something you do for fun. Yeah.
Oh, phew. That's
yeah. Not everyone can pull off a ponytail. You got to know your limits.
I'll tell you, I do many ponytails now, obviously, with having children.
Yes.
So I'm often called upon in the morning to be on ponytail duty.
That seems like something that would be easy. That doesn't seem like it would be a hard skill to learn.
No, but there's a variation in the ponytail now. There's a slightly different style, and I'm yet to master it completely.
Has it got a name?
No, it doesn't have a name. It needs a name.
But ponytails are new now. Like there's a whole new way of doing them.
Yeah, it's not quite, not all the hair is in the ponytail. So it's generally referred to as that way you've been having it recently,
Okay.
Do you want a ponytail or
You
that way?
definitely need a better name than that.
That's right. Yeah. I do need to get better at it. I'm only the emergency hairdresser in the morning, that's for sure.
I must take a picture of my computer screen right now because we're on Skype and I've got this picture of you, which at some point I made the picture of you or you've made the profile picture of you. And it's just this tiny little Tim face like smiling at me and I'm looking right at it the whole time and I don't normally see your face while we're podcasting and it's kind of freaking me out.
Is that the one with the is it a brown jumper I've got on?
It looks like I can't tell what colour the jumper is. You got like a striped shirt, short hair, no ponytail.
Well, I tell you, while I was waiting for you to call through on the Skype, I opened up Skype and saw the profile picture and I thought, oh, that's out of date. And I clicked through and I started going through my gallery trying to find something better. And I failed and I just went, oh, no, bugger it, I'll stay with that one. Nothing's improving, so.
No, it's all right. It's just you look kind of like happy but not joyous and it's freaking me out. But I've got nothing else to look at, so. Can you see any image of me on your screen? Or
yeah. It's a shadow silhouette of and
me and Lulu.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it, but yeah.
It's all right. It's all right. I know that my dog died.
It's quite wistful. It's a lovely photo with just the silhouette, that's for sure.
It's not meant to be trend. Oh, you're upsetting me now, man. Stop.
It's not strictly accurate though, is it? Because Lulu didn't use Skype. Only you use Skype.
No. Well, no, not that I'm aware of. But who knows what dogs do when you're not in the house?
That's right. Dogs.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we need to let the ponytail idea go because we're already getting a bit bogged down in it, and I'm dying to hear about your idea.
Yeah. Well. I've actually done a bit of research, and this is where you can tell I've done a bit of research because I'm carefully manoeuvring my screen to open up, my notes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I know. Prepare to be underwhelmed. My first idea is called eponymous. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wasn't eponymous a late 80s greatest hits album from REM before they moved to a major label? Well, yes, Brady, but it's also a word. Do you know what eponymous means?
To do with the names.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So eponyms. So things that have taken on the name of the first person, but that we've long forgotten who the person is who came to embody this.
Like Sir Edward Ponytail, who had the first ever ponytail.
Well, that was going to be my first example. That's right. Well, no, so I think I got talking with about this with a friend the other day because something came up that I didn't know was an eponym. And then I went researching and found there's a huge amount of them. And so I think this is a point of interest in itself, people talking about their favourite eponym, but then also exploring what they would like an eponym to be if their name came to embody a particular attribute and so forth.
Give me a few examples first to get me in the mood, and then we'll come up with some that we'd like.
All right. So I'll give you a few quick ones. So shrapnel is named after General Henry Shrapnel from the 18th and 19th century, the British soldier who invented the shell. Shrapnel is actually named after him. Mesmerize is named after Franz Mesmer, a German doctor who sort of did some early work with animals that developed into hypnotism.
Nice.
Isn't that interesting? Maverick, right, is actually named after a person, Sam Maverick, who was a Texas politician and a rancher who refused or couldn't be bothered to brand his cattle. So instead of branding his cattle, with the name of his farm, he goes, nah, bugger it. And people are like, whoa, that's Maverick. And he became known and being a maverick as someone who doesn't conform.
Yeah.
I think that's so interesting. Did you know that already?
No. You know what would be a good game show?
Yeah.
You do 3 of them and you've got to guess which one's rubbish and which one's made up. Because you could just make them up and I would have no idea.
Oh, that's right. Even the word eponym I've just made up. It's not even a word. This notion of sideburns comes from General Ambrose Burnside, this Union army leader who boasted Burnside,
Really?
had them and they came...
There must be something that they stick better when it seems logical, because like the word shrapnel sounds like what it is.
It does, doesn't it?
Sideburns, I would have assumed, comes from the fact they're like going down the side of your face, and maybe there's, I don't know exactly where the burn would have come from, but like I would have thought that kind of was more descriptive and not from a person. So
it does
they must
seem
stick
like
when they work.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. So here's another one. I like this one because I love cardigans. So cardigan,
Right.
This is named after James Thomas Bridnell, who was the 7th Earl of Cardigan, who was involved in... he was ultra-conservative, intolerant, made enemies easily. I don't know if this is relevant to a cardigan. He's actually quite a radical character, which is funny because we equate a cardigan with a nice, comfortable person.
Why were cardigans named after him? Did he used to like wearing that particular garment?
So he led this disastrous charge of the Light Brigade up the valley towards the Russian guns in Crimea was it 1854 at the age of 57. The weather was appalling in the Crimea, bitterly cold and damp. Some officers wore a long-sleeve knitted military jacket as a way to keep warm. And this was the original cardigan, although it wasn't much like the modern example. But it took on the idea of it's being so cold, let's get this knitted thing and put it on, took on Lord Cardigan's name. Although why is still a bit obscure.
Of course, Cardigan is a place, which is what he was like the lord of. It's the same way that Sandwich, the Earl of Sandwich is a place, and the Sandwich was named after him, but in turn he was named after a place, or he was an earl of a place.
That's right, yeah, but it was associated with him as a person rather than the place. But it would seem his name became attached to it because he was the best known figure of the war at the time, who was feted on his return, and it just became associated with that's the war where we wore those jackets, and they became known as the sort of cardigan jackets. But there's loads and loads of these, and a quick Google just brings them all up, and it's really quite fascinating.
Of course, the ones you don't want are like diseases, like Crohn's disease or Parkinson's or Hodgkin's lymphoma. These are all things named after people as well.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't want one of them.
No.
Unless there's one where you're like uncommonly handsome, and and they call it like, Tim Hine-itis.
That's right. Yeah. The Matt Damon effect or something, where you come out just looking clean cut with nice hair. And people can't believe you'd ever have had a ponytail. That's got to be the Damon. The Damon look. In that line, man, I looked up Hine because I wondered if it's legendary for some reason. And it turns out there's a Hine Wellens who was a cardiologist, I think, who I think it was Wellens syndrome or Wellens disease, which is like a cardiac issue.
He was Dutch.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. You got it there. I looked this up during the week, and I think it's like a cardiac problem, a problem of the heart, which is also ironic considering, my dad had like 5 heart attacks. So I just associate it with him.
Well, of course, a really common problem you can have with your heart is bradycardia.
Oh, really?
Which means slow heartbeat, because the word Brady actually means slow in like medical terms.
Oh.
So if you have tachycardia, you have like a fast heartbeat, and if you have bradycardia, you have a slow heartbeat. So like bradycardia is like a really common thing.
Oh, right. There you go.
But I don't think that's not named after a Brady. That's just the word Brady meaning slow.
Yeah. It's etymology.
I hope. I hope it's not named after me because,
Well, you know what? I went looking up bradying as well. Do you know, before you go looking, do you know what bradying is?
What bradying?
Bradying, yeah. This is a pretty more recent colloquial use of the term. Bradying is a thing. And
no,
you haven't heard what it is. Well, it's actually named after the legendary quarterback Tom Brady, from the Patriots.
Yeah.
And it came about after a photograph appeared of him after the team's loss against the New York Giants in the Super Bowl. They actually did. The Patriots actually did lose a Super Bowl. I know they've won like 5 or something over the last 10 years, and he's like a legendary player. But they lost to the Giants. And a photo was taken of him sitting with his head down, with his legs out and with his hands together, It's almost like he's praying, but he's sitting on the ground. But basically, he's like despairing. He just looks sad sitting there.
I'm looking at it now. Yeah.
And it became a photo fad where people would, a bit like Tebow and taking a knee. This has became like a phenomenon as well.
Like the whatever it was, the plank challenges and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Picture, right?
So braiding is a person sitting with their hands clasped, looking despairing at the ground.
Okay.
You'd never heard of that before?
I had not, no.
No, there you go. So braiding is a thing. Now, man, but this comes from Tom Brady, legendary quarterback, not from...
I know Tom Brady very well. I have a Tom Brady jersey in my closet.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Like, basically, I'm a really big Patriots fan because of Tom Brady, and I didn't like jump on the bandwagon when they started winning. I became a fan before then because the first time I was ever in Boston, I went into a sports store and they'd just drafted Tom Brady, like they'd just signed him, so he hadn't become this big hero yet. But you could buy all these tops with Brady written on them, and you never see things with my name written on them in shops. So I was like, oh my goodness, there's my name on these shirts in a store. So I bought this Tom Brady Patriots, football jersey and took it home to Australia. And then in the years that followed, he became the phenomenon that he is.
Yeah.
And right from the start, I had this Brady top. So every Super Bowl when they're in it, I'll always wear my Brady top and watch the game and stuff like that.
Oh, that's great. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I have a really good friend who's the one who, I've been talking about NFL with, for a couple of years, as I've shared on a previous episode. And for him, Tom Brady and the Patriots, are the most disliked team.
If you're not a Patriots fan, they're the most hated team. They're like the Manchester United or the Collingwood sort of team. Yeah.
They are...
I went to an American football game just on the weekend, just gone.
Oh, who'd you see?
It was a college game. I went and saw the Berkeley, the Bears play against Oregon State.
Oh, right. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it was great.
I hear the college games are seemingly as big an event as the NFL games. Like,
depending on where you go. I went to one in Alabama a few years ago, and that was like, that was bigger than any crowd I've ever seen at a sports game. It was crazy. The Bears are not quite as good a team, so it was a bit more laid back. It was probably only, 10, 20,000 at the game. So what's something you would like to have named after you?
So it's funny now that, so heining is a funny, it's a weird word. Timming is also a bit of a weird word. So it's, a Tim or a
Timming
hine.
sounds like it might be something a bit rude. I don't know why. It just feels that way. I don't know why. I can't explain it, but...
Timming is like kissing.
You could come up with a new thing to replace kissing. Imagine that. You would have thought humans had thought of every nice thing to do like that, but maybe there's something yet to be discovered.
Maybe it can be that thing where, when someone hugs and in a photo, but then they put the two cheeks together, you know what I mean? Like they're facing the same way, but with a side cheek. Yeah. Maybe that doesn't have a name. Yeah. That's called timming. Yeah. Maybe, not that I do that ever.
Yeah, it has to be something you're like, have you got a trademark move? For example, when you pose for a photo with someone, do you have a trademark move?
Apart from looking awesome.
That could just be it. If someone has a photo and they look really good in it, they can go, God, I'm timming in that picture, aren't I?
I'm timming. Somewhere along the line when I was younger, I got the impression that I looked better in a photo if I didn't smile. Like if I looked, like just had my lips closed and sort of looked...
Is this phase where you thought you looked like River Phoenix?
It may have been around that time. I didn't think I looked like River Phoenix. I was being consistently told I looked like River Phoenix. But do you know what I mean? So maybe timming can be that, I know you're telling me to smile, but I'm not going to smile moment, but just before someone takes a photo. You know what I mean? Or smile without doing a big laughing smile. But I remember feeling the tension of that moment for a few years.
So is there like a phase of your life where every single photo you look really grouchy?
You can see with rock bands. Rock bands never smile in photos. They all look, pensive and deep and serious. Yeah,
there are very few albums where everyone's just doing big cheesy smiles, isn't there? Yeah. All right. I mean, it could be there could be a thing named after you as well.
What do you mean? Like a tower, like the Eiffel Tower?
Yeah, a mountain or something.
Oh yeah. Okay, well, what in the world would you like named after you?
I have actually dealt with this on another podcast in the past, and at that time, and it's probably still my answer, My answer was, I think it'd be really cool to have the moon named after me and have it called the Brady.
Instead of being after Edmund Moon, who actually discovered it.
Like just, people for thousands of years going, oh, look at the Brady.
The Brady.
Just glistening over the mountains.
It's a half Brady tonight.
It's full Brady. It's a waxing Brady, a waning Brady. But
a red Brady, that suits. There you go.
A total eclipse of the Brady.
A total eclipse of the Brady. I've seen the dark side of the Brady, that's for sure.
Neil Armstrong was the first man to set foot on Brady.
The Brady. It doesn't. The moon doesn't. Moon also sounds like what it looks like. There's two big O's in moon, and it's round. And a Brady feels like it would have like bits coming off it somewhere, or it would be.
Yeah, good point.
Like a big piece of cloth or something. Brady sounds like the Brady waterfalls. Because Brady sounds like a waterfall. You know what I mean? Of it's all consonants falling down everywhere. Yeah.
I'd love to have something in space named after me.
You can buy a star though, can't you? Isn't there an idea?
No, don't start on that rubbish. That's not real.
Well, I'm sure it's not facilitated by NASA, but it is something you can do.
International Astronomical Union. It like oversees all naming conventions and stuff of stuff in space.
The proper convention stuff, or you mean the buying someone a star for their birthday?
No. The proper stuff, not the stupid gimmicky, buy a star stuff. That's not true, but. Yeah.
What sort of categories do they use? Do you know anything about how they go about it?
Well, I don't know. It's different for different objects, and it's people who make discoveries that normally get to name certain things like asteroids and things like that. But I mean, if I was going to have a star named after me, I reckon I'd choose the sun.
Please.
Brady Rise.
What if you called up about the sun, said, look, I'd like to put a deposit down on naming the sun, and they said, oh, I'm sorry, that's just been taken by Tim Hine. He's calling up. It's been available all these years and no one's ever claimed it. Oh, dear. Well, there you go. Yeah, well, so eponyms, there's a lot to talk about. It is interesting, and there's a list. You can just Google and read more and more. Although you wouldn't want to do that. You'd want to listen to this podcast to discover another one week by week.
Yeah. And a cool thing would be to have people on the show who are still alive who have stuff named after them.
Oh, that's...
I mean, the funny thing is, obviously, I spend a lot of my time with mathematicians, and mathematicians always have stuff named after them. So I've interviewed loads of people who have things named after them in mathematics. The Harron conjecture, Hine's theorem, stuff like that, and they're all still alive. So, I often talk to people about the thing that's named after them.
Like, I mean, some sort of abstract theorem and is one thing, but what about the real cardinal things? Like, have you met the original Addition, like Mr. Addition? And is he still around? I imagine he's died by now. Is that right?
I'm impressed you called him Addition and not Plus.
Plus? That is his nickname. Does he get annoyed that he's called
the Plusmeister?
Sandra Subtraction. She died.
No, I haven't. I've been trying to get Pythagoras, but he won't answer my emails.
At least you know what their gravestone would look like, wouldn't it? Like if you the original Mr. Addition died.
Yeah. Sandra square root.
There you go. So eponyms. I think there's as you can see. I mean, we're reaching the bottom of the barrel now, but I think there are other barrels.
I want to find out more. I want to talk about it more sometime because I think we've hardly scratched the surface. I think this is a top idea.
Do you want to do an ad?
Oh, I've got to do an ad, don't I? Yeah. Hover. We can't do the podcast without Hover.
We're certainly not doing it because of the ideas. We're doing
No. So, Tim, today's episode has been supported by a company that was named after a very famous man named Sir John Hover.
Sir John.
Founder of hover.com, the website one uses to register domain names, that we use to register domain names, and all our listeners should be using to register domain names.
And you know what? They're so good at it that this should become Hover should become an eponym for naming websites. Like to hover on something.
For registering a domain.
That's a good name for a website. Go and hover it. That's
hover
right.
that. Oh, you got to hover that.
You got to hover that. Yeah, yeah.
Do you think that's why the company's called Hover? Because it's never been explained to me why they're called Hover. Do you think it's because you're like hovering over a name? I've never known. I've never known.
It would make sense, though.
I must ask them.
And it would catch on. They should definitely put it to hover. You should hover it. In fact, I would probably instinctively say that. If that's a good name, I might hover it. I'm going to go online and buy the domain name through Hover.
Do you think Hover registered hover.com on Hover? Because they didn't exist yet.
Oh.
So they can't have registered themselves on Hover.
Well, So
how did they register their name?
but everyone uses something else to invent the thing that they're inventing. Like that's by definition. Every invention in history wasn't created by the thing they're inventing.
Yeah, I mean, and also one of the great things about Hover is once you have a domain name with someone else, you can transfer it to Hover. So maybe they registered it with someone else, made Hover, and then transferred the domain to Hover.
I didn't know you could do that. That's really good.
Oh,
that's helpful.
That's one of the best things about Hover, because before Hover came along, I registered all these domains with a company that's not very good, and I've just gradually been moving all my domains over to Hover when they expire and things like that. And it's really one of like the selling points, one of the talking points, that we can talk about with Hover is how easy it is to move your domains from those crummy domain people over to Hover. So that's something people should maybe go and have a look at. So look at that. Job done. Ad done.
Maybe that's what hovering could be, transferring a domain name from someone else to Hover.
But it has to be named after a person, so maybe they should find out who the first person who did that was, and, Samantha Jones, and call it Samanthering.
Samanthering.
I don't know. Maybe we're clutching at straws now. But anyway, if you want to register any domain names or do transferring and all that kind of stuff, basically if you go to hover.com/unmade, you're going to get 10% off like your first purchase with them. Hover.com/unmade, 10% off. I'll also put a link down in the notes for the show. And you can still use timhine.ninja. I believe that is still active for people who want to also get to Hover another way. But doing that's really good for us because it means they know you came from here. They'll keep supporting us and we can keep making episodes of the podcast. So, do consider them if you're in the market for domains. And check out the website because it's really good and easy to use. I really like them. I would use them even if they weren't a sponsor. So thanks, Hover. Here's my idea.
Yeah.
It's called Back to the Wrong Horse. And it's all about those moments in life where you go all in and you think one thing's the way to go. And it turns out you should have gone the other way or you made the wrong decision. And I've got a few examples.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So here's one example. I've got 3 examples here. They're all quite childhood related, I guess. One is the chocolate confectionery called Smarties, which are these chocolate buttons with a sort of a hard candy shell that I loved as a kid. And I just thought, Smarties with the bee's knees.
Smarties filler gets there first. They're Smarties for everyone. When you're eating Smarties, it's a pack of fun.
And then this new interloper came in from America called M&M's.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way M&M's are going to catch on. They're nowhere near as good as Smarties. Smarties is where it's at. And I thought, there's no way you'll ever catch me eating those M&M's. Smarties all the way. Smarties are here to stay. I feel like I might have backed the wrong horse there.
I think...
And M&M's kind of, cornered the market.
M&M's have caught on. Look, but let me ask, are Smarties even still around?
Well, I rest my case. You live in Australia and you don't know. I think they are, but I don't know.
Do you know what M&M stands for?
When I was young, we always said it stood for American Smarties because it was the second letter of both those words. I now realise that can't be true.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
I believed it when I was a kid. Seeing they come from America, I can't see why they would call them American Smarties. I've never even heard of Smarties.
Did you buy shares in Smarties or did you...
I didn't buy shares.
I'm so convinced.
My parents invested our house on Smarties.
Smart.
Oh, what does M&M's mean? Here we go. Forrest Mars, who's the guy of the Mars Company, struck a deal with Bruce Murray from Hershey to develop a hard-shelled candy. So it was Mars and Murray were the 2 leaders of the confectionery companies that did it. So So it was like a joint invention, a joint product of those 2 companies. So anyway, let me give you some more wrong horses I backed.
Go for it.
As a boy, I loved Matchbox cars, which is a brand, Matchbox, that made, small little cars. Cool cars and successful.
Yeah, yeah.
To me, the enemy that I thought would go nowhere and wasn't for me was Hot Wheels. I wasn't a Hot Wheels man. I was a Matchbox man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that says a lot about my personality too, because like Matchbox had a lot more conservative packaging, and their cars were less glamorous. They were just quite normal and stuff.
Yeah.
And Hot Wheels has all that garish packaging, and they always had hot rods and colourful cars, and things were a bit more showy.
Big engines and extractors and all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was a Matchbox man, and I thought Hot Wheels will never last. And these days, when I wander toy shops and stuff, I feel like Hot Wheels is everywhere.
Yeah.
And Matchbox, I don't know. Maybe they're still going. I don't know. But Hot Wheels seems to have won that battle.
Do you remember these being like actual decisions in your mind, or looking back, it was a default?
Like it was a loyalty. I've got one more example, and it's very similar. So when I was young and had toys, my parents bought me these toys called Machine Men, which were like a toy car that would transform into like a robot. They were quite small and they weren't very good.
I remember them.
I thought they were great. And then around the same time, Transformers came out. And Transformers were a lot more complicated and did more stuff. And I just didn't like them. I was just all in on Machine Men. They were smaller, and I quite liked small little cute things. Transformers were a bit bigger, and like that wasn't... I liked little collections, and, it sort of appealed to my nerdy side to have little collections and things to be neat and micro and stuff. I was all in on Machine Men, and I thought Transformers, again, was like the Hot Wheels of this genre of toy. That was a bit showy and a bit much for me, and I thought, no, those Transformers, they're not going to catch on. I went all in on Machine Men, so when, what presents do you want, Brady? I want Machine Men, I don't want Transformers. Again, back to the wrong horse.
I do vaguely remember Machine Men, but I was always a Transformers man.
Yeah, you strike me as more of a Transformer, Hot Wheels kind of guy.
Oh, well, I'm not really a Hot Wheels kind of guy, but let's not have a too broad a brush. But
were you a Matchbox car kind of guy or Hot Wheels?
Yeah, Matchbox cars are still what I would call them.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
But I've still got an Optimus Prime Transformer, like over at Mum's house in a bucket of toys that kids play with when they go over there.
Why is it at your mum's house? Does she want to play with it?
Yeah, she's more of a Transformers person. No, it's just one of those old toys, that's just there for when kids come over in a small bucket or something.
Yeah.
And they're just a few of my old toys. But yeah, there's an Optimus Prime in there somewhere.
Can you remember, a time in your childhood where there was these forks in the road where everyone's into something or the other, and you said, this is the way I'm going to go? And
I remember there being conversations, not that I made a decision. Like I remember, for instance, the big debate that was on about VHS and beta, video cassettes. And some families had one and some families had the other ones. And they would argue about them. They would, which one's better and this one's better. I also, and obviously VHS won, and they're still thriving today.
By the way, I wouldn't say that VHS are thriving today, by the way, man. But anyway.
No, that was a joke that didn't get a laugh. So just let that go.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry, man. This is not a time for joking.
Sorry, man.
But
Tim's always treating the podcast with such triviality.
Sorry, you're too droll for me.
The other one I remember is the Munsters and the Addams family.
Yeah, that's a good one for where someone likes the other. That's kind of like the Star Wars and Star Trek of that genre.
Yeah. And now I'll come back to Star Wars. Hang on a sec. The Munsters and Addams family, I remember standing around with other students and teachers buying in because they both suddenly appeared on TV, even though they were made like back in the 50s or 60s or whatever.
Yeah.
In the 80s, they suddenly appeared on afternoon TV.
I remember that big revival. Which one did you prefer?
Oh, I'm a Munsters person. I much prefer the Munsters.
Go away.
Yeah. I didn't like the Addams family.
I'm totally Addams family.
I think you'd have to say that I chose the wrong one because the Addams family is the one that's appeared as, movies and all that sort of stuff. Even recently, my one of my daughters went and saw like a school play. They were doing the Addams family, and so I was introducing them to a bit of the background on them.
Why do you think the Addams family won? Is it because it had the good start with the...
Yeah.
That helped it a lot.
The song, yeah.
They're all together, ookie, the Addams family.
Maybe it was, I don't even remember the Munsters song.
It was a bit more rock and roll-y, wasn't it? It was a bit more fast-paced and zany. Munsters was a bit more zany.
I don't remember enough. But I backed the wrong horse.
You backed the wrong horse.
I feel like for a while, Star Wars and Star Trek, right? Because I went through Star Trek. I feel like Star Wars was massive everywhere, bigger than anything in the 80s when I was a kid. And then no one ever talked about it as we grew up through the 90s and stuff.
I was still talking about it, man. I was still talking about it.
Well, in my heart, I was just like, well, I just love this. So I think maybe meeting you was a big part of that. And we carried the flame through the mid-90s, going around all those shops, buying those really obscure toys and stuff that were popping up. But then it came back in a big way with the new movies, and it felt like it won the day.
Yeah, I mean, Star Trek is still, I wouldn't say Star Trek has lost or was the wrong horse. And
no.
I think both those horses they are different horses, but I think you certainly couldn't say Star Trek was a wrong horse.
No, it's not the beta of space.
It's more like that. Like Star Trek and Star Wars is more like Beatles and Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Like they coexist, and people they appeal to different tastes in many ways. But some people like both, some people like one, but they're both objectively pretty successful.
Yeah. There's no bad horse there, is there? No wrong horse.
Yeah.
Are you more of a Beatles or Rolling Stones person?
Oh, definitely Beatles. I don't know that many Rolling Stones songs, Well, I know some of the couple of famous ones, and I saw the Rolling Stones at Glastonbury from 500,000 miles away. But my dad loved the Beatles, so I grew up with more Beatles music being played than Rolling Stones.
I saw the Rolling Stones almost exactly 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, actually. Facebook popped up the photo saying, hey, this was 6 years ago, just this week, which was a brilliant show. Fantastic. But it was...
Where'd you see him?
Like at the Adelaide Oval here.
Top Gun versus Iron Eagle.
What the heck is Iron Eagle?
I rest my case.
I think you've just made that up. Like that.
Around the time Top Gun came out, there was this other film called Iron Eagle. I mean, I loved Top Gun, so I'm not saying I backed the wrong horse. But it was also this kind of fighter jet type movie. And I felt like Iron Eagle was like, a worthy contemporary, on the same level as Top Gun. Like the two films were very similar and both excellent, and both would be remembered as classics of their genre.
Iron Eagle.
And while Top Gun, I think, can claim to have done that, Iron Eagle seems to have been more didn't do it.
Who was in it?
It was about this guy, this American fighter pilot who I think he crashes or something and gets held hostage by some enemy regime of some sort, hostile country.
Your country has been warned time and time again.
And his son, who's really into planes, trains to fly an American fighter jet and goes and rescues his dad, this teenage kid.
Do you think with the right plan, it'd be simple to go in and get him?
They made it work. I love
Wow, okay. So is the whole movie, how long does it take him to train?
Well, he was already a good pilot, and he was going to be in the cadets or something. And then I think the military had decided that they weren't going to rescue his dad. So this mentor, this guy called Chappie.
And he'll do it with one of the toughest fighter pilots who ever lived, retired Colonel Chappie Sinclair.
Who I think was what's his name? Louis Gossett Jr. or whoever that actor is, or is that his name? He was the actor who played Chappie. Let me see what Wikipedia says about Iron Eagle.
I've never heard that name before.
There was even Iron Eagle 2.
Oh, yeah. No, I know Iron Eagle 2. I just don't know Iron Eagle.
I know. Iron Eagle 2 is my favourite movie. But I didn't know there was an Iron Eagle. Iron Eagle is a 1986 American-Canadian military action film.
1986?
It stars Jason Gedrick and Louis Gossett Jr. While it received mixed reviews, being unfavourably compared to the similarly themed Top Gun released the same year, the film earned $24 million at the US box office. Iron Eagle was followed by 3 sequels, Iron Eagle 2 and Ace's Iron Eagle 3, and Iron Eagle on the Attack, with Gossett being the only actor to have appeared in all 4 films, which I find strange because he dies in Iron Eagle, spoiler. So I don't know how he ended up in all the sequels, but good work, Chappie.
It's almost like they couldn't get... What if they made Top Gun 2 back then, but they couldn't get Tom Cruise, so they had a spin-off with just Goose, and it's just... It's like Goose flies again, and it's like... Didn't you die?
I won't read you the whole plot because it's really, really long. But you must watch Iron Eagle and tell me what you think of it.
Well, it sounds like if it's got more sequels, it must have been more successful. There's more material.
Yeah. Well, they just kept trying till they got it right.
Top Gun's one of those movies I don't know how many times I've seen it as a kid, over and over and over and over and over, just with a VHS, and you get out of the library, video library again and again. I would have seen it dozens of times.
Have you seen the trailer for the sequel?
I did, yeah. I saw it once. It doesn't...
Tell me, what was your impression? What did you think when you saw it?
I watched half of it and went, I'm not interested in watching this.
Do you know what? It excited me.
Oh, yeah?
Like, I watched it and I thought, oh, I feel a bit excited by this. Like, because it hit all the cues, didn't it? It had all the sound effects and little bits of... It was just so full of callbacks and little bits of nostalgia that I kind of thought, you know, once you get over the shock of how different Tom Cruise looks now, you kind of...
The G-forces upon his face have been...
I watched it with my wife and I did say, God, Tom Cruise is looking a bit ropey, isn't he? And she's like, he looks pretty good. And she looked at me just with a raised eyebrow and said, look at you.
He's been doing it. He's been doing it for quite a while. He's still looking pretty good.
Oh yeah.
I imagine it's going to be quite good because Tom Cruise. I guess that you wouldn't do a sequel unless it was going to be. They wouldn't want it to be disappointing. So maybe they've held out and done a really good job. It just
Well said.
I can't. I'm not interested in watching a Tom Cruise movie. I don't know. I can't. He and Leonardo DiCaprio, I just can't get near them.
The other day, just a couple of days ago, I had this like, you know how sometimes you really crave something, like you crave like some drink or some food or something. I had this craving to watch the film The Departed that I couldn't explain.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I have to watch this film, and like I rushed home and sorted out, and luckily it was on Netflix, and I watched it on Netflix that night and loved it.
Have you never seen it before?
I'd probably seen it 4 times before, maybe.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see it.
I think that's a great movie. I've sought that out before as well. I'm going to watch this again. I think I've seen it 4 or 5 times. Yeah,
Top film.
It's quite an interesting. It's a very well-made movie, you'd have to say.
Well, I think he's going to go far, that director.
Yeah, I think he will.
Scorsese or something.
Scorsese, yeah, something like that. His new film, The Irishman, which has both Pacino and De Niro in it, is coming out soon. I think on Netflix. I think that's right.
Right.
Which I'm really
that's
looking
right.
forward to.
They've done some streaming deal. Yeah.
That's cool. I like Scorsese's films, dark as they are. Anyway,
good.
that's. I tell you, I've thought of just one more. This is not backing. It's not quite backing the wrong horse, but it's a bit of a comparison. Do you remember when Ants and A Bug's Life came out at the same time?
Yes, good one. Yes, another one. Maybe backing the wrong horse isn't the right idea for the podcast. It's that kind of, I don't know what the name for it is, but it's that whole, those parallel things that come out. Because, when something's popular, everyone jumps on the same bandwagon, and there are, which one's better of those two when that happens? Yeah, because you're right. Ants and Bug's Life was, 2 camps. 2 camps, maybe that's the name.
2 camps. Yeah,
maybe the name's somewhere along which camp, or I don't know. I don't know what the name is yet. I don't know.
Did you have a preference between those two?
I think in this case, you would argue I backed the wrong horse, because I think I liked Ants slightly better, or was more impressed by it, but I feel like A Bug's Life did better.
Yeah, I can't remember which one was the bigger one. I remember reading this in a history of 90s cinema, but I don't...
Let me have a look. Let's just judge it on box office. I'll tell you what the box office was for both of them. Ants, 1998, and what number are they giving it on Wiki? They're giving it box office 172 million. Pretty good. Let's have a look at Bug's Life. 98, that's the same year, isn't it? Yeah, 360 million.
Yeah,
so that
was...
It was bigger. It was bigger.
I don't think I saw Bug's Life till much later, but I was in the Ants camp. I thought I liked this. And that's because I was a huge Woody Allen fan through the 90s and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's in it. So I thought that was a bit more clever and associated with him. But
so you've got Woody Allen voicing that one, and Kevin Spacey's a voice in A Bug's Life. So those two films haven't aged well, have they?
Yeah, 2 camps. That's a pretty good idea. I reckon there's a whole bunch of these.
Yeah, I quite enjoy talking about this. I could, if we were better prepared, we could talk about this for ages.
Maybe we could make this one.
Yeah. Cool.
There's another 2 camps, actually, just to finish on. The Unmade Podcast and No Idea. Which... Do you remember No Idea?
That was one of our possible titles, wasn't it?
That's right. Nelly, the Unmade Podcast was almost No Idea. And we even had a bit of a play graphic drafted up with a deer and playing on that. So,
I just realized, there is another there are 2 other famous 2 camps that one must decide between.
And?
Coke or Pepsi.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And McDonald's or Burger King.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot, actually. It's almost like it's almost like the capitalist system set up for competition.
KFC or cocaine?
KFC's far more addictive. They won out there easily. It would be funny. I've just been reading Elton John's biography, and it would be funny to do
Elton John or Billy Joel?
Elton John or Billy Joel. That's true. It would be great to go through Elton John, and every time the word cocaine appears, replace it with KFC, and it would be a heaps of fun of life, that's for sure.
Oh, dear.
Are you an Elton John or Billy Joel man?
Billy Joel.
Billy Joel, yeah. I always thought you were. You quite like
Yeah.
Billy Joel.
I love Billy Joel. He's a genius. Elton John's pretty clever too, but I love Billy Joel.
Elton John has a little bit more fun about the way he doesn't take himself seriously and stuff. But I think in terms of the actual songs, I think I have to go with Billy Joel as well.
Yeah.
New York State of Mind's one of my favourite
Yeah.
songs. Scenes from an Italian Restaurant is probably my favourite Billy Joel song. That's a
and of
beautiful
course
song.
his famous duet, Piano Man, with that woman, unnamed woman he sings with.
That's right, of course. Yeah, we've been here before. The two camps. Which of the two singers in Piano Man did a better job?
So it's almost like everyone has a twin, don't they? Like who's John Farnham, the Australian singer John Farnham? Who's his twin? Who's his?
Jimmy
cat?
Barnes.
Jimmy Barnes or John Farnham?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And they came together in that one song, When Something Is Wrong With My Baby. There's kind of the working class rough guy rock, and the other guy the pop guy, you know? And they sort of come together.
Yeah, one's the bad boy and one's the one you bring home to your mother. Kind of like you and I on Unmade Podcast.
That's right, Brady and Tim. That's right. The good-looking hot guy. And the smart guy.
Oh, you've cornered me there.
Well, everyone has a doppelganger or a nemesis. I guess the nemesis is the sort of the dark doppelganger, you know, the other person.
Yeah. Well, until next time, thank you everyone for listening. Support us on Patreon, and you know, in the meantime, tell your friends about the show. What's the other thing? Rate it, review it, or something.
T-shirts. Don't forget there are mugs, T-shirts. You can have a mug with my Fanta shorts on them.
Yeah, there's merchandise. Yeah, do those things. Do those things. I mean, how can you not after the sales pitch we just did?
I'm pressing stop now, man.
All right.